What's amazing about this device is that when it operates under load, its power consumption actually decreases. The prototype was tested in an academic environment at the University of Žilina. Measurements were also carried out by the Meteorological Institute using calibrated instruments. The results were so impressive that the reaction was, "This is too good to be true." That's why I turned to experts, specifically the University of Munich, and received an unexpected response. Centrifugal force cannot be the reason, because centrifugal force does not actually exist. It's a fictitious force. Right now, the pump is running idle, meaning it's only pumping air. Our power consumption is about 230 watts. Let me show you. Well, it's at 240, so around 230 watts. Then we lower the suction hose into the water, which means we're starting to pump liquid. The flow rate is about 36 to 37 liters per minute. And the power consumption dropped from 230 down to 140 watts. The more we load the pump, meaning the higher the pressure in the system, the lower the power consumption. At full load, we see the lowest consumption, 90 watts at 1 bar of pressure. The second experiment, through which we can prove that centrifugal force is real, involves increasing speed, specifically raising the RPMs in a loaded system. If we double the RPMs, centrifugal force should increase by a factor of 4. This means that if I increase the rotation frequency from 23.5 Hz to 47 Hz, the centrifugal force should create a pressure of 4 bars, and the power consumption should not increase by more than 100%. So we're going to test that now. I'm gradually increasing the speed, and the pressure in the system is rising. We haven't even doubled the RPM yet, and the system pressure has already reached 4 bars. Meanwhile, the power consumption rose from 90 watts to 140 watts, significantly less than a 100% increase. This is where the true potential of centrifugal force becomes clear. We can dramatically improve efficiency as long as the materials and the construction can handle the load. Here we are, really talking about a revolutionary technology that has the potential to save tens of % in energy across the whole industry. As I mentioned, we already have ready solutions not just for these vibration-type devices, but also for rotary motors, where the same effect is observed. We're harnessing the action of centrifugal force to produce some kind of power, whether it's linear motion, rotary motion, and so on. My name is Pavol Nemeš. I'm from Žilina, a small town near Nitra or Nové Zámky, and I've basically spent my whole life inventing different kinds of devices. Although I'm not a physicist, I never studied physics. I managed to come up with and build a device that seems to operate against the known laws of physics. But maybe that's exactly why, because I never studied physics. If I had, it might never have occurred to me to go down this path. And today, we are going to talk about this device. This device is already working beyond any doubt. We even managed to get it patented. The prototype was tested in an academic setting at the University of Žilina. Measurements were also carried out by the Meteorological Institute using calibrated instruments, so there can be no doubts about the results achieved. And what's truly amazing about this device is that when it operates under load, its power consumption actually decreases. That's so unbelievable to many physicists that it's really difficult to get them interested in this device. But we're trying, and we'll see where it takes us.
And could you explain the working principle of this technology in a simplified way for our viewers?
Sure, you could call it a trick or a clever idea, because today, all existing and commonly used drives rely on inertia when running idle. Let me give you an example. When a car accelerates, you speed up, and the fuel consumption might jump to something like 20 liters per 100 kilometers. That's the instantaneous consumption. But once you reach a steady speed, say 100 kilometers per hour, and maintain it, the fuel consumption drops to around 5 liters per 100 kilometers. This because the car is now running on inertia. The engine just keeps the motion going, and those 5 liters are used to overcome things like air resistance, bearing friction, tire rolling resistance, and so on. Our system works in a similar way. It uses the inertial force of unbalanced weights that are spun by the motor. And because we don't draw energy from the spinning motion itself, instead, we harness the oscillatory motion caused by the imbalance of those weights. The motor keeps using the inertia of the weights, while we convert this secondary, oscillatory, side motion into useful work. That's exactly why we achieve such results, and why the energy consumption drops under load. When the device is running idle, there is more oscillation. But when the device starts doing useful work, like pumping a liquid, the oscillations decrease and the weights move over a shorter path. Thus, the energy consumption drops as well. It's a bit like driving a car uphill, where normally inertia drops off or is only partially used. But in our case, it's as if the motor doesn't even notice the uphill climb, because if the movement was created purely by the secondary oscillations, then as the car started going uphill, the oscillations would just get smaller, but the car would still keep climbing. In other words, we continue to use inertia even when the device is under load. I'm not sure if I explained it clearly enough. Honestly, it's difficult to make it simpler. Even though we load the device and draw energy from it, we are not slowing down the motor's rotation. It keeps running, powered by inertia.
That's really interesting. Could you tell our listeners how you came to this discovery? What inspired you to create this invention?
At first, I was actually building something completely different. It was a special aerodynamic tube. And during testing, the same thing kept happening. Whenever it rotated, it would start tearing apart. There would be some deformation. It would get damaged, and we had to stop everything. We tried to figure out what was going on, and when we noticed that it always tore at the edges, we concluded that centrifugal force must be at play. When I started studying more deeply what centrifugal force actually is, I came across some very strange results in the calculations, things that didn't make logical sense to me. So I turned to the experts, specifically at the University of Munich, and got an unexpected answer. Centrifugal force cannot be the cause, because according to them, centrifugal force doesn't exist. It's a fictitious force. That really surprised me, and I kept digging deeper into the topic. Eventually, together with my colleague at the time, we managed to create a device to test whether centrifugal force actually exists or not. And to our surprise, and to the continued surprise of physicists, we discovered that centrifugal force is indeed real. We can use it, and it represents real power, real work, and we can harness it efficiently to do something useful. So the first test or experiment was designed like this. If centrifugal force is real, then when we put the device under load, its energy consumption should not increase. And to our amazement, not only did the consumption not increase, it actually started to drop, and not just by a little, but almost by half. Meaning when we increased the load, the device's energy consumption dropped by nearly 50%. For us, that became clear proof that centrifugal force truly exists.
Going back to the essence of this device, how would you explain in simple terms what advantages it offers and what it could be used for?
At first, we applied this technology, let's call it a new type of drive that uses the effect of centrifugal force, in a compressor. We achieved a 30% reduction in electricity consumption compared to a standard, commercially produced compressor. That was a really unexpected result. 30% is significant. Experts who specialize in compressors explained it to us. Up to 10% of all industrial energy is consumed just by compressor drives. As we continued our research and testing, we developed a pump where we refined this technology even further. And there, we achieved a 65% energy saving compared to similar pumps, which, to be honest, almost seems unreal. I want to emphasize that this is still a prototype, and there's room for improvement. Even though it sounds almost like a fairy tale, all the measurements were carried out by specialists using calibrated measuring equipment. So there is no doubt about the reliability of the results. I'm also working on applying this technology to rotary mechanisms. That means almost all industrial machines that use rotational motion could be equipped with this drive system and save up to 65% energy on pumping. And even if we average the savings at 50%, it's still a massive step forward.
If I understand correctly, if this device is integrated into any technology, be it a pump, a compressor, or any other rotary device, Can it deliver 50% more power with the same input parameters? Or conversely, can it reduce energy consumption by 50% or more while maintaining the same output power?
The second option is right. It's about saving energy. At the same power output, let's take a pump for example, meaning the same volume of liquid pumped, say X liters per minute, we would consume 65% less electricity to pump the same amount of liquid at the same pressure. And it's important to clarify, these 65% savings were achieved at a system pressure of 1 bar, which is equivalent to lifting water 10 meters high. So the key point is the energy savings. Since we're talking about efficiency, now we are working on a system applicable to rotary devices used in power plants or electricity generators. A simple example, a wind power plant. With our system, we can significantly improve its efficiency. Today, wind turbines operate at around 40% efficiency on average. That means if a turbine is exposed to wind flow with 1 kilowatt of kinetic energy, it can currently convert only about 400 watts into electricity. But by applying our technology, we could increase that number by at least 50%. Meaning the same wind turbine could produce 600 watts instead of 400 watts. That means we can significantly boost the efficiency of electricity generation. And it's not just applicable to wind farms, but to all other types of power plants, hydro, thermal, and nuclear. Anywhere electricity is generated using turbines and generators. By implementing our technology, it's possible to increase electricity production by at least 50%.
Well, that truly sounds like a revolutionary discovery. And the thought immediately comes to my mind. Surely you must have shared this with many people, or even with a wider audience. What was the reaction?
Yes, of course, we are trying. Because the scientific community, especially physicists, seem to have some internal barrier against dealing with something like this. Even though the world is currently searching for solutions to global crises, ecological, economic, energy, we are, in fact, offering such a solution. But the results are so good that the typical reaction has been, "This is too good to be true." Nevertheless, we have taken certain steps. It was quite difficult. After many failed attempts and a lot of effort, we managed to sign a memorandum of cooperation with the University of Žilina. We are now conducting tests and presentations of the device there. Specialists from the university are trying to explain and investigate why this phenomenon of reduced energy consumption under load occurs. We'll see what conclusions they come to.
And do you have an explanation for why this is happening?
I'm convinced, just like a significant part of the industry, that it's all about the effects of centrifugal force, and that this force is real. You know, during experiments with the prototypes, we used commercially available vibration motors. When these motors spin unbalanced weights, they create vibrations, oscillations, and we convert those oscillations into useful power. In fact, the manufacturers of these vibration machines even state in their technical documentation that the vibrations are caused by centrifugal force, yet the scientific community, physicists, still deny the possibility that centrifugal force could be used to create power or perform work. They continue to claim that centrifugal force isn't real, and cannot be used to generate useful energy.
Have you encountered any positive reactions or support for this technology from the academic or scientific community?
Well, at the University of Žilina, it looks like they are genuinely interested in studying it seriously. For us, they are still a bit slow, but what can you do? Hopefully we'll get there. The thing is, they try to understand and explain what's happening within 2 minutes. But their explanations so far don't really match reality. Let me give you an example. One so-called physicist looked at the machine and said, "You've managed to find a resonance. Somehow you harmonize the vibrations with the device and the liquid you're pumping. And therefore, there was a decrease. But the problem is, the device operates at different frequencies. If his version were true, it would work only at one specific frequency. But in fact, it works across all frequencies. We simply can't conclude that we just accidentally hit a resonance frequency. That would be way too big of a coincidence, to hit resonance on the first try."
And if I may ask, you must have some kind of plan or vision. How do you think this technology could realistically be implemented in society, in industry, and so on? Where should it start?
Well, it's not exactly easy, but we'll see. We're trying, reaching out to different companies that might be interested. The problem is that large corporations are bogged down in bureaucracy. It takes forever for anything to move forward. And smaller firms simply don't have the resources to invest in development, and so on. Still, we're working on it. And the fact that we have real results is at least confirmed by the 2 innovation grants we've already received, 15,000 euros each, which we're currently putting to use. In my opinion, the way forward is to focus on reaching the scientific community, particularly physicists, because if they understand that our results are valid, it would be much easier once the professional community itself says, "Yes, there's something valuable here, something that can solve some of today's major challenges." That would be the fastest way to bring this invention into practical use.
I'd also like to ask, what is your motivation? What keeps you moving forward?
Honestly, I feel almost forced to keep working on this, in quotation marks. I find it incredibly interesting, but I constantly face this massive wall of indifference. Not even resistance, just being ignored. And sometimes that can really get discouraging and frustrating. But somehow something always comes up that pushes me forward again. A new solution, a new idea, and I keep trying and searching. I wouldn't say I'm stubborn or blindly chasing a goal. Honestly, I'm too lazy for that. But circumstances keep nudging me not to give up and to keep moving forward.
I must admit, I find the working principle of your device really inspiring, especially given that we're living in an era of climate change, largely driven by human activity. In particular, there's the issue of pollution from plastics, microplastics, and nanoplastics, which are now found in nearly every molecule, not just in the oceans, but across the entire ecosystem, even inside our own bodies. This all heavily contributes to extreme weather events and salated issues. On our platform, we've already introduced technological solutions, like atmospheric water generators, which could actually purify the entire water cycle. But these devices are extremely energy intensive. You also mentioned we're living in an era of energy crisis. I've seen forecasts predicting a dramatic increase in energy consumption, driven by the adoption of new technologies. That's why, to me, your invention feels like a bridge between the technologies we have now and the free energy technologies we hope for. I really like it. And I would like to ask you, what message would you like to share with people, with scientists, academics, or entrepreneurs? Why should they take interest in ideas and technologies like yours?
The answer is actually already in your question. It's truly astonishing that the most educated people, the so-called elite of our society, refuse to accept facts. That's exactly how I see it. Some might think I'm complaining, but it's genuinely demotivating when you present results, patent documentation, and measurement reports to highly educated people, and they still, I honestly don't understand why. Maybe it's envy, or maybe they think I somehow faked the patent documents. But all of it can easily be verified today on the Patent Office's website. It's real. It's not like I hacked the Patent Office. I just like to say, people need to start thinking a bit more. Everyone's out there desperately searching for solutions, and yet, when the solution is right in front of their eyes, and they ignore it, push it aside, or even devalue it. On one hand, I do understand them. The internet is full of so-called inventions, where people make all kinds of claims. And when you take a closer look, it turns out to be fake. And the inventors don't even bother to explain anything properly. That's why we invite everyone who genuinely wants to see it for themselves to bring your own measuring instruments. We hold public presentations of our device prototypes every Saturday and Sunday at 10 a.m. You can see everything firsthand, bring your own instruments, and verify if it really works the way we claim. The situation has really become desperate. Physicists refuse to even talk to us. They avoid us because to them, it's obvious this must be fake, that it simply can't work, despite everything we've done, measured, and verified. And if anyone truly wants to see, they are welcome to come and see for themselves. I would even compare it to a biblical situation. We're throwing a wedding and inviting all our close friends, meaning the specialists, to come and take a look. And if they refuse, well then, you go out into the streets and invite everyone you meet. So we are inviting absolutely everyone who is interested in working or collaborating with us. As I've already said, I'm not claiming to be the smartest or most brilliant person. Maybe someone will come, take a look at this technology, understand how it works, and suggest an even better solution, some improvement, and so on. That's why we're open to cooperation. If someone is interested in sharing in the future profits from this technology, they're welcome to come, see for themselves how it works, and even conduct their own measurements if they wish. Then they can decide whether they want to invest financially or support it in some other way, and become part of something that truly represents the technology of the future. And no matter how long it takes, I believe we will succeed in moving it forward.
How long have you been working on this technology or its development?
Specifically on this technology, I've been working for over 9 years. Before that, it was that aerodynamic tube that kept tearing apart whenever it started to rotate. But this particular technology I've been working on for 9 years. Before that, there were many different projects, but they were more like experiments.
I'd also like to ask, I don't know if we already touched on this, but what specific advantages for society could this device bring?
Well, that's probably more a question for analysts. But of course, since I've been working on this technology for many years, I've thought a lot about its broader consequences. And really, the longer you think about it, the more you realize how far-reaching the benefits of reducing energy consumption could be. If we were talking about 10 or 15% savings, that would already be, wow, great. But when we're talking about 50% or more in electricity savings, then it really affects everything. Imagine two competing companies, and one of them starts using this technology and cuts its energy consumption by 50%. The second company, if it doesn't do the same, would simply go bankrupt because it couldn't compete on price. This is just to illustrate that eventually, the entire industrial sector would be forced to switch to this technology. Once practical implementation begins, the impact would be colossal. We're talking about 50% energy savings in industry. And beyond that, as we discussed earlier, the efficiency of electricity production itself could also increase by dozens of percent, which brings another layer of benefit. This means there would be a surplus of energy. We're talking about electricity. And this surplus would lead to lower prices. And that would directly affect the gross domestic product. Today, we talk about a 4% GDP growth rate and say, wow. But with this technology, it could be a minimum of 14%. And then we would really start seeing social consequences. Governments would be able to lower taxes, increase pensions, and offer various social benefits. And that would take everything to a whole different level. And suddenly it turns out that economic growth can be not in units, but in tens of percent. And that would affect, in essence, every one of us.
It really affects each of us.
Yes.
And what can each of us do to make this a reality?
True. Basically, show interest in this technology, spread information about it. And if someone knows any physicist, because honestly, the biggest problem is getting through to experts in the field of physics. If anyone has such an opportunity, besides simply spreading the word, that this technology exists, and it doesn't matter whether the person has resources, connections, or even their own company where they could apply this technology somehow. It's enough just to contact us. Come and see how it works. We will be happy to show everything, demonstrate, talk, explain the possibilities, and present what we have. And as I said before, there are many smart people who will be able to develop even more advanced devices based on this technology. I'm simply saying, we have opened the doors. We have flung open the doors that provide opportunities for the use of this technology. And that's almost everywhere. Now it all depends on what those smart and capable people will do. If they want to make a profit from it, they will jump on this train and start working with the technology. Those who are less inventive will rely on the more capable ones and ride along with them. But new opportunities are now open, and we invite everyone who is interested and ready, come, have a look, and think for yourself about how to move forward.
Excellent. I would like to sincerely thank you for today's conversation. We heard many interesting facts. Personally, I believe that this invention opens incredible possibilities for the development of the whole society, and it would be a shame not to take advantage of it. So once again, thank you very much. And to you, dear viewers, I say goodbye and sincerely hope you will continue following our episodes. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. And we will keep you updated.
Thank you.